Perfect. I guess we're already live, huh?
Yeah, seems like.
Yeah. Let's wait a couple of more seconds. I see a lot of people are joining right now.
Yes.
Maybe 10 more seconds, and then we start. Yeah, perfect. I guess we're good now. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. First webcast with IXT on Zero Trust Security. My name is Stefan Drees. I'm the Global Sales Director at IXT, and with me today is Henning, CEO and CTO of the company. Henning?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Henning, and as Stefan said, I'm CEO, CTO of IXT. Just quick background. Been in the telco industry for about 25 plus years. Yeah, so that's my background.
Perfect. So
Good.
can you mention a few words about the about IXT?
Yes, so first of all, IXT, for those of you not knowing that, it's a full MVNO. That means that we are operator of our own core network. So it means that we are a telco. We provide connectivity to the entire world. And basically built on our own infrastructure. It's a Norwegian company founded last year with a global touch. We already have subsidiaries in Sweden, in Germany, Netherlands, and we're expanding in the US and in Asia. So the goal here is to have a complete global offering with all services included. And of course, for the customer, we provide a single SIM, one SIM with global coverage. And I think we are covering most of the countries and regions in the world now with 600 plus mobile networks.
Yeah, that's a really great set of features already. And in addition to all these features, we have a very strong focus on security. And as you all know, security is quite a complex topic, and we all know the different regulations and endless postings from LinkedIn to really deep dive into it. So today, what we're going to do is we don't want to focus so much on the problems, and for sure we will talk about this later on. But at the moment, we don't want to focus on the problems. We would like to focus on the solutions at IXT. And we did that with a product called IXT SecureNet. So what does it actually mean? So instead of having the customers selecting from multiple services and options from their MVNOs, we put everything under one umbrella, so to say, so under one product, and that's called SecureNet. SecureNet contains multiple options where we have a look on. So it includes a completely private APN where we do a micro-segmentation, block the public internet access, and avoid peer-to-peer communication as the first layer of security. It also includes an IPsec tunnel. Customers can also decide for dual IPsec, even with BGP, to have a kind of comprehensive and a really good solution in terms of security. Did I forget anything, Henning?
No, I think that's the foundation of the SecureNet. Traditionally the cellular connectivity to IoT has been providing either over public APNs that goes directly over the internet. That's been the bread and butter offering for ages, and then we moved into the private APN space where you have customer specific APNs rather than private shared APNs. So it's been an all-involving story about how to make it more secure and how to, let's say, separate the IoT traffic from rest of the mobile network. And it's an ever-evolving story how we, let's say, utilize the mobile network for the best of connectivity for everything.
Yeah, that sounds really great. So let's have a quick view on the private APN. So we mentioned the microsegmentation earlier. So what does it really mean? So the customer gets really assigned a completely private subnet, means he's completely logical separated from other customers. So there is no interaction in between. While at the same time, it's good to control that your device maybe is not allowed to go into the public internet. So by default, this is blocked. Well, as an option, you can unlock specific ports so that your device can connect to any OTA server or something like that at any point of time. But in default, that's blocked. Same as the peer-to-peer communication. So the broadcasting, each device cannot talk to another device, which again is an option you can unlock because for multiple reasons you might have that enabled. But by default, that's also blocked. So that's our part on the private API.
Yeah. Yeah, these are offering you can basically turn on and off in the secure net based on your requirement. There might be a situation where you want to have connectivity between two specific devices for whatever reason. There can be multiple reasons for that, but in general, the mobile network is a point-to-point connection, so it makes perfectly sense in a hub and spoke kind of environment where all the devices are typically reporting into some kind of head-end server which receives the data and the server is talking back directly to each of the devices. So that's the typical scenario. And as you mentioned, that could go over an IPsec VPN over internet. It could go through a redundant pair of IPsec tunnels, point to point, even with dynamic routing, MPLS integration, and so forth. So that's all part of the SecureNet offering.
That's really great, and I guess that's a really good way to go. Well, of course, it depends a little bit on your environment, yeah. So for some customers, that might be not required. Some customers need a much higher kind of security. So there's a big variety basically available. So while talking about this great setup already, we mentioned that in the beginning we have a very strong focus on security. So in addition or as an addition to SecureNet with the private APN and the VPN tunnel behind, we will come up with another option, which is called Zero Trust, right, Henning? Let
Exactly.
me move to the next one.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next level of what we're doing in terms of securing the communication part. Of course, all the things we have been talking about now is good for added security. That's for sure. But what we see more and more now is the capability to ensure that the communication stays safe all the way through, and that we are actually removing the attack surface, because establishing these tunnels in all directions is also a security concern, because once the tunnel is up, anything can basically go through that tunnel. And that's one of the major issue with VPN, is that whatever goes inside the tunnel is basically allowed. It's an encrypted tunnel, so it just passes through. And obviously this gives you end-to-end IP capabilities within the tunnel, which also exposes the IP stack of the cellular device to any prone attacks that you could start from the outside. So So to mitigate those kind of things, we are adding the zero trust capability to the network, which basically means that we are putting some, let's say, call it magic in between the IoT device and the central head-end. It's something we call the cell edge and the zero trust exchange. What it essentially does is to make sure that the traffic that goes between the IoT device and the central sites is actually being inspected and is being secured, and the actual connection is going outwards from the zero trust exchange towards the head-end and towards the IoT device. So that means that there is no way for like a third party to go in and connect directly to the end device. That has to go through the zero trust exchange, and that will can potentially inspect all the traffic, and you can set rules based on whatever you are allowing to pass through the exchange. So that's the kind of the basic idea about the communication part. But of course, zero trust in general is something that's been around, especially in enterprise networks for many years, and it's a concept that we now are moving from the enterprise world into the cellular world, where we potentially also see the same issues as in enterprise networks.
Absolutely great. And you mentioned I noticed one thing you mentioned earlier, and that was about inspection. So what I have in mind when I hear this, so imagine we have kind of remote location where you have multiple devices. It could be that people going to the site, taking the device and trying to kind of hack it, so to say, because it's a remote location, so maybe nobody noticed. But that would mean so having zero trust installed and kind of hacking a device. So the system might identify and hack device because it may be using a different IP address as a destination or something, or maybe has an unusual behavior in terms of traffic kind of thing. So can you say something to that?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the key goal here, is to try to establish a baseline of what we allow the traffic to go through the network. So for a typical scenario where you have, let's say, a number of EV chargers, or it could be sensors that's out there with a SIM. They are typically connecting to the mobile network, and they are then submitting some data to a central server. This is the baseline for the communication. This is what we expect for this device. We are expecting, for instance, an MQTT session or an OCPP session, for that matter, to a certain head-end system, to a certain IP. That's what we expect. As soon as we see something that goes beyond that or outside whatever we have baseline as being allowed for this device, we could potentially block that traffic, or we could inform about this traffic. It's multiple ways to do it, but the key idea here is to allow only the traffic that's supposed to be allowed for the device, and everything else is handled and blocked by the zero trust exchange.
Okay, that's really good to know. So this example was more about blocking something when something goes wrong. But let's view it from the other side, from the other point of view. So if I maybe have a network with a huge distributed endpoint, so to say, and there is maybe an external contractor who need to have some maintenance on one of the sites or endpoints or whatsoever. So that means I don't need to grant him access to the whole VPN. So I can maybe grant him access to a specific session on a SIM level, or how does it work?
Yeah, that's that's one of the good things here. I think in the past, we typically with the private APN, you will, if those kind of scenarios are popping up, which they typically do for a large IoT customer, you will have to create some VPN access for that third party to access your private APN, And of course, then it's prone to whatever attacks that potentially that third party could enter into the tunnel. You know, you're opening that private APN to a third party that you don't control, you don't know their policies, and so on. So anything could potentially enter through that tunnel, and you also have the issue about the potential problems with connecting to all your devices in that private APN. So then we entered what's called the privileged remote access. So that means that we are capable now to expose remote connectivity options for a single device in a single private APN somewhere in the world, anywhere in the world, and we could allow access to that single device through the browser for a given protocol, and we could even inspect that traffic. We could monitor that traffic, and you as a customer could monitor your third party, and you could allow him to access this sensor or this device for a number of minutes, hours, or days. And even if it's encrypted, we could monitor that session. So it's a totally, let's say, a new level of control over the remote devices.
Yeah, that's great. So in the beginning, we had the blocking thing. So now I have granting access to something specific, but I'm also thinking about to have devices which maybe need to have regular access to specific services. Yeah. So maybe I have a tracking device which only is allowed to speak to this specific telemetric platform. Or I have another device which needs to be regular connected to an OTA server, so I can have kind of whitelisting on demand for this specific device and the session. So it's not like a general whitelisting. I can just do it on demand for this specific service.
Yeah, that's
Right?
that's typically also part of the baselining process. So we are offering those kind of, let's say, basic net services within the secure net offering. So what we know is typically requested by a customer is having access to network synchronization time and date, maybe an SMTP exchange, maybe some specific general services that should be available to the device. Those can be part of the whitelisting. And also, and of course, customer specific services is also part of the baselining. So a firmware server for updating the devices, for instance, is something that we can allow as part of the baseline.
That's great, and I know from previous projects and customers, they quite often in this specific scenario with an IPsec and a private APN, so they quite often require a DNS service because they don't want to have the resolving on their side, so they would rather have the DNS on the network. So is this also possible to have a DNS service available?
Yeah, that's also part of the, let's say, the standard offering within the private APN of a customer. So you will be assigned a pair of redundant DNS servers for the resolving of names that could be done. Even we could resolve names outside in the outside world. So in some cases, we see that a customer is developing a product, and the product is of course based on a number of components, and some of the components could be cellular modules from a given vendor, and that vendor has its own FOTA server or its environment to update the baseband of a chipset or a module, and it requires access to that. Of course, if the customer allows this to happen, we could allow those kind of things as well, so that it's seamlessly updated as part of the private APN.
Absolutely great. Yeah. So in the beginning, I mentioned that this is this was now our very first webcast, and the topic was IPsec and zero trust. And in the beginning, we would like to make it a little bit easy. So we don't want to flood you with all the super complicated information. So we rather use this webcast as an entry level, so to say. For sure, there will be more kind of deep dive sessions, especially on the zero trust. But for today, was more a general overview about the option at IXT we provide to the customers. So, and with this, I think this was already a good summary, and we would like to move over to the Q&A session now. So for you, as you logged into the client, on the right-hand side, you should have a panel where you can see a chat. And for the chat, there is a public one and a private one. So please use the private chat to assign any kind of questions right now.
Yeah, and I think this summarizes stuff pretty well. And as you mentioned, Stefan, we will have some more webinars later that goes into the details of the zero trust access, and there are multiple levels and multiple options as we move along. And of course, customers have different scenarios. The ones we've been talking about today is a typical scenario where you have an IoT sensor, but we know that from many customers there are much more complex scenarios where you basically have a 4G, 5G router that sits on a remote sites, and the router have a LAN segment where you could potentially have maybe a few hundred devices sitting on the LAN side. So from a network point of view, from a mobile point of view, you're seeing a single SIM, but behind it there is quite a lot of devices that talks through this connection. And securing those kind of scenarios is also a different story, but it can be done from the router point of view and from the network point of view. So it's possible to distinguish between the devices that sits behind that mobile router, and also the traffic could be baseline from that as well. So yes, there are of course multiple topics to discuss here, but that's for later.
Yeah, I put the end-to-end encryption already on the list for the next topic, but you just made an add-on. So in addition to an end-to-end encryption, which is the scenario with the router maybe and talking to the backend, right? So we are able to even monitor the network behind the router, right? So that's
Exactly.
some more additional stuff we will cover next time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And through the framework of zero trust, of course, there are multiple things to think about. You can't really forget the principles that never trust by default. So you have to check everything, and everything has to be inspected, because of course, as many customers are seeing, you need to be NIS2 compliant is something that everyone in Europe at least is focusing quite a lot on, and for the global stuff is the SOC 2 and everything else that you need to care about. So there are multiple things to think about.
Great. I can see the first questions coming in. So is SecureNet, so someone is asking if Secured is really required for having the zero trust, or are they independent products?
Yeah, so basically we started off with the SecureNet offering, which was the private APN, essentially with the IPsec and VPN capabilities. So that's still our like our main product, where you get the private access in the mobile network. And zero trust is really an addition to that. So you are adding the zero trust access to the SecureNet offering to make it even more secure. So depending on where we are going forward and the adoption in the market and so on, we will probably use the zero trust as the default offering in the SecureNet going forward. But it depends a bit on how we are implementing it, but that's the plan, yeah.
Mhm. There was another question if the public internet is completely blocked. So that means that the SIM cards have no access to the internet at all in this given IPsec scenario.
Yeah, so in that scenario, it's typically the internet is completely blocked. We usually say that if your IoT device or if your device whatsoever is designed to talk to, let's say, a single head-end system, a server, and submit its values, why do you put it on the internet in the first place? There's no need for mixing it up with the internet. So typically it's completely isolated. But then again, back to the breakouts and those kind of things. If you need to access something on the internet, if the device needs to access something on the internet, of course, we could opt out that traffic and allow it through the allowance of the ZTNA exchange and allow that traffic. It's completely possible, but typically we isolate it from the internet.
There's another one. Do I need to install any client or server to have access to Zero Trust?
No, that's kind of the beauty, I think, with this offering. It's network centric. So whenever you have a device out there and you would like to have the ZTNA framework enabled for that service, it's part of the network offering. So basically, you don't use any client on the network side. The only exception to that is by digging a bit deeper into this. Of course, you can when you have the scenario with the router, when you have a lot of devices on the backside, the router itself could be part of the Zero Trust, meaning that there will be a client in the router that's capable of basically microsegmenting the devices on the LAN side. So from that perspective, there will be a client, but for regular, let's say, small devices out there that's just using the secure net, there's no need for a client.
Okay. Yeah, that's it, I guess, with the questions. Let me check if there's any more. Oh, no more questions available. Seems we had a pretty good explanation, so everybody got the point.
That's good. That's very good.
Yeah, but I think that's to be fair enough. That's good already. So we checked the offering, we checked the parts of the secure net, what kind of VPN options we have. We talked about the Zero Trust. So I think that's quite good to get an idea, an initial idea so far, right? So what we do is we will create multiple more webcasts to have a more deep dive on the end-to-end encryption and the stuff Henning mentioned earlier. And yeah, so then we have the chance to really deep dive into it and have a little bit more of a deeper chat.
Yeah, and I think it's also fair to say that some of these have to be discussed more in details in terms of the actual vertical that we are imposing this framework onto. So for specific verticals, there are specific needs, and we will cover them in future webinars for those verticals, and some of them have special requirements, and there are also let's say additional stuff like identity, how we protect that, and how we ensure the identity of the remote end, and there are several more layers to add. So we'll get back on that.
Perfect. With this being said, I would say thank you very much to joining and for joining us today. And yeah, have a great day and hope to see you soon.
Thank you to everyone.